You're listening to the Generational Wealth Through Commercial Real Estate podcast. Your host, Will Smith, is a former NFL player that found his passion in commercial real estate. Every week, you will learn from industry experts everything you need to know to get started investing in commercial real estate to build generational wealth.
Ladies and gentlemen, today's guest is Garth Schultheis. He's been in the investing game for a while now, since '89, if I'm correct. And he bought some multifamily in the '90s, sold them, and then he got back into the game here recently, a couple years ago. His portfolio right now currently consists of 209 units in Colorado, and he have a couple properties that he has offers in right now. So, hey, Garth, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, Will. How about you?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit about how you got into real estate.
Oh, wow. Real estate investing or real estate sales?
Let's talk about investing.
Investing, it was kind of I blame my brother, and I also thank him. So yeah, in 1989, I was a young man. I'm 50 years old, soon to be 51.
Yeah.
So in 1989, I was still, a sophomore in college. And my brother, he's 10 years older than me. He was trying to figure out his way in the world, and he decided he wanted to get into real estate investing. He had read those books, that we've all read. Like, this was before Robert Kiyosaki.
Right.
What was the guy, Robert D. Allen or something?
Mm-hmm.
It was How to Buy Real Estate with No Money Down.
Yep.
And he bought a couple duplexes and realized, that wasn't really going to pay him passive income like he wanted. So he ended up getting 29 units and then 17 units up in Logansport, Indiana.
Yeah.
And he was like, dude, come and do this. Let's do it together, which we really didn't know what all that meant. So when I graduated college in 91, I worked with him in the summers starting in 89. But in 91, we were the maintenance man. We were the grass keeper, lawnmower, rent collections,
Yeah.
And I didn't get paid, but for some reason I realized that was probably a good thing to learn, and it would help me in the future. And so, yeah, my brother and that's how I got into it with my brother. And then we kind of rode the wave. I always say, at least I can speak for myself, maybe not my brother, but we were young and dumb and lucky.
Yeah.
Because in hindsight, and when we bought 42 units in 1992, that was an amazing, we knew it was pretty cool, and we were able to come in and raise the rents and add value to the place. We bought in Fort Collins, Colorado, 1 block from campus, from CSU.
Yeah.
And we didn't really have any competition back then, because a lot of people don't remember this, but I think it was in 1986, Reagan changed the tax laws. And so that made it to where if you were a lawyer or a doctor and you were losing money in your passive income, you couldn't write it off onto your active income or your regular income. And so when he changed that law, because before you could write all that off, but when they changed the laws, all of a sudden, if you had 30% vacancies, you couldn't write that. Now you were losing your butt. And so building came to a screeching halt, and so when we were buying in 1992, 6 years later, people were still scared. They were super scared to get back into it. People were just starting to get they were making money because they hadn't built for six plus years anyways. So the market caught up finally, but we jumped into it, and we were just read books and didn't know anything, and it was like, well, this is easy, and we didn't have any competition really. 40 to 50 unit apartment complexes, nobody wanted to buy those things. And but that only lasted maybe 18 months, 2 years, and then all of a sudden it just started going crazy again in the mid 90s. But we were able to get in on a few things. We bought 42 units in Fort Collins. We had 50 units in Cheyenne. That was a bad one. Bad deal. I bought 50 units in Albuquerque without my brother, and then my brother and I had bought 98 units in Durango, Colorado, where I still live today with my wife.
Yeah.
So Yeah.
Gotcha. Now, if you can remember back, man, that 50 unit that was a bad deal. What made it a bad deal for you?
Oh man. So, I would say, like I said, I was young and dumb. We got lucky on the first one, and the things that you just think, well, we can do that again, no problem. And
Yeah.
those are mistakes I made as a young man. Number one, selling.
Yeah.
If I could go back, I would never sell a couple of those properties. But the property that I bought up and we bought up in Cheyenne, everything looked good, but we didn't do our due diligence in the marketplace.
Mm.
And that was a couple of years. Let's see, when was that? So this was during the Clinton years.
Yeah.
And if people remember, he was going around and he shut down a ton of military bases. And Cheyenne, there's a major military base there, and he shut that down.
Wow.
About 3 months after we bought the place.
Yeah.
And so most of our tenants were military.
Yeah.
So all of our add value that we were going to do and raise the rents and stuff like that didn't happen.
Wow.
And it just turned into survival mode. We had a third partner on there. We didn't lose our butts. I ended up just at the same time we had bought down here in Durango. My wife, my new bride, and we had just moved down here.
Yeah.
And so I ended up just saying, well, just give me my money back. You can have my share, which was a smart thing to do in hindsight. And so I got out, and that guy, he just worked it like we did back in Logansport, so I guess you could say it wasn't a complete failure.
Yeah.
And it didn't take us down.
Right.
But yeah, that's the reason why is we didn't do our due diligence in the marketplace.
Right, right. And that's I want to make a very good point for my listeners here. When you're looking at a marketplace doing your due diligence, if it's a military town, not saying that it will happen, but it happened to Garth here. And when I'm looking at a marketplace, I really want to look for something I don't want to see a floor that has more than 30% market share. If they got more than 30%, then I'm starting to get a little nervous. So you want to see diversity of employers when you're looking in the marketplace, because if somebody leaves, it's not going to take the whole industry with them, like Detroit. When the stuff went bad there, it went bad for everybody. So that's something really really think about for sure.
You can still buy a block down over there in Detroit, I heard, for like $1.
Wow, that is crazy, man.
Some of those places, anyways.
Yeah. So, so you've been in the multifamily space. There's a lot of different asset classes out there that you could have chosen. Why did you decide to go with multifamily?
Well, the reason I went with it because my brother said that was a good thing, and but as I learned, and then as I learned through experience, because in 97, we sold the 98 units we had here. And then I got out of it. I was trying to reinvest, but I couldn't find anything. Yeah. And I ended up getting my real estate license, and which was a bad thing for investing, a good thing for my experience.
Yeah.
And I got into other asset classes. I owned single family residential. I did fix and flips. I did it all. It was in commercial buildings that were a good deal. But at the end of the day, I remembered what I liked about multifamily, and I would say the reason why as I changed gears and said I'm going to go back into multifamily and really focus on this, was because multifamily, it's so easy to adjust. You can adjust to a changing economy or a changing market so much faster than you can with commercial building. Those kind of because I've been in commercial buildings where you have it's nice once you sign that 5-year lease with that oil and gas tenant, but it's not as fun when the lease is coming up and they're leaving the area.
Right.
So it's hard to adjust your rents, because you're operating in fear most of the time. Where like if you have a 50-unit apartment complex that's a mile from your house, and you can get there in 5 minutes yourself, and you're familiar with property management, even if you have a property manager, if things go south, You could fire the property manager. You could do the leasing yourself. You could go paint apartments if you needed to.
Right.
And then you have the leases coming up on an annual basis that different times of the year. And so you have, it's easy to adjust. So you have one tenant come up, or 10, you might have 1 or 5 apartments come up a month.
Yeah.
And I've experienced that even here in Durango, which is a great market for rentals, but they were building 200 units. And so they were offering a special deal. So it was a little soft, we were freaking out because we went from 1% vacancy to a 5% vacancy for a couple months. Oh my gosh. But then it absorbed it and we went back. But so for a couple months you adjust I was renting out my 2 bedrooms for $1,250. Now they're $1,195. Or you just offer, you can offer a TV, or we live by a ski area. I've never done this, but I thought about it. It's like I could offer, if you sign up with us, you waive application fee, we'll give you a ski pass or whatever. You can be really creative with it, and you can save a bunch on expenses if you need to. And that's where I would say my limitation has been too, is investing outside. It's a new thing that I'm working on. I've invested outside of my local area. And I can't say I've ever been super successful. But I'm reevaluating those things, and I'm looking nationwide. But I have different parameters and different infrastructure, business infrastructure in place, and strategy and non-recourse financing, all different things I've learned over the years that I'm going to implement to protect myself. Investing. But most of those books, when you read them, the best case scenario, which I've just stuck real, in my rebuilding of my portfolio, I didn't, when stuff, I was tempted to go buy something 45 minutes away. I'm glad I didn't, or I decided not to, because all my stuff is within 10 minutes of my house. And so I know that I can survive a bad market. And then I also know in my local market, the rental market was not affected in a negative way during the 2008 crisis. And I wished to God that I had been invested in more apartments during that time. I would have survived other things, So,
absolutely, man. That's some good stuff there, man. It's a good reason to be in it. Like you said, it makes a lot more sense to have 50 units and 2-3 people leave than to be in a small strip center and 2 people leave. Now you really in trouble.
Worse yet, like single, triple net tenant in a gas station or something.
That's the worst.
Stuff scares me. I mean, it's great if they stay 100 years, but
right.
And I'm not very knowledgeable in that. And one thing that I learned from my brother, watching him over the years, is he was always very, very patient and disciplined. Because you look at, I made a lot. I've made fortunes and lost fortunes. My brother, he just steadily made a fortune. And because he stayed in one asset class, and that was multifamily. He had a potential hiccups like right around when September 11th hit. That's a great story I could share. But how he did that, I was impressed. He survived that. But besides that, during 2008, 2009, it maybe was a little harder to rent for a little bit, but it was no big deal. And so that's what he did right, was that he was patient. There was this other young kid that we used to know on the Front Range, and he was just doing deals all the time. And he came and went, But my brother, he might look at 12 deals a year, but and he's maybe only done 10 deals in his life. I don't really know. But the majority are solid, and then he's in the same asset class. He sticks with what he knows. So I'm going to do the same.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, stick with what you know. If you don't understand something, don't invest in it. That's the number one way you lose money, or people lose money, investing in something they don't understand. All right. So Man, let's talk about, you said you got a couple of properties under contract right now, or you putting offers in on.
Right.
How are you finding your deals right now?
Yeah, that's always a tough thing. And that's why, so the 48 units that I bought, I put the deal together with a partner, ended up being just one other partner, and was able to close on that in 2017. I would say I've waited for that deal for 20 years.
Yeah.
And and that one I found on the MLS.
Wow.
Believe it or not. But I put an offer in about 30 minutes after I saw it.
Yeah.
So one of the, it may seem simple, but I'm a real estate agent. You're a real estate agent.
Yeah.
It's funny because I've had clients over the years, and they'll say, "Hey, find me a good deal," but that rarely, if you're just telling some broker to do that for you,
Yeah.
I mean, I'll be, if there's a sweet deal like that, usually it's gone in an hour,
Absolutely.
right? If not
Absolutely.
before it even hits the market.
Right.
So you got to be quick on your feet. You got to understand and trust what you're doing. But yeah, being a broker has been helpful.
Yeah.
Because I have access to MLS. Number one, which may seem simple, but I have notifications on MLS. So when multifamily pops up or something in the region, I know it instantly.
Right.
And then I can respond. The other way that I've been doing here over the last 6 months is I'm just using out all the networks that I have. That's kind of how you and I met, right? Because we are, I'm just putting the word out that I'm looking for multi-family investing. And this is my criteria. Yeah. And so as an agent, I'm with EXP, which is, there's a lot of collaboration in there. There's a lot of opportunity with commercial stuff. Yeah. I mean, I was just on the phone yesterday with this guy through our company. Yeah. That he's out in California, and he has a client. Get this, and he's in his 80s, and he has about 742 units in the Bay Area.
Wow.
Which would be about $1 billion portfolio.
God damn.
Well, let's put that deal together.
Yeah, for sure.
So, it's just these mastermind groups and stuff like that, and networking they're amazing, and they get your juices flowing.
Absolutely.
And so the two deals that I'm working on right now, one actually, believe it or not, was on LoopNet, but it's a local complex that I'm familiar with, and so that's all I'll say about that. And then the other one is through my networking that I'm doing. I actually was able to kind of drum up. I basically am doing. I don't want to give too many details. Right. But I basically I have advertisement squeeze pages, like sort of stuff going on, and somebody here locally responded to it, and I was able to respond to him, and it was. Oh, wow. I actually had talked to this guy 5 years ago. Yeah. And he had called me because I'm in the business, and he wanted me to talk to this other guy who buys investment property. Yeah. And he just responded, and I just said, it's catching people at a time. I just texted him and said, hey, or he actually responded and said that he had a property off market. Yeah. Wow. And then I was like, oh yeah. So I just started asking the questions, and it's like, oh, and then I've been crunching the numbers. It fits my criteria. Yeah. When I'm making him an offer. Man, so that's awesome. And it's, if this would never, I would say it's a third of the price that you find on the MLS today, as far as paying retail. Dang. Or multifamily in our area. Man, that's pretty good. So I'm still gonna need to do some more due diligence, because maybe there's a reason why. But, but if it's really at that price, I know my market well enough that, dude, I don't care if there's bed bugs over the whole building, I'm buying it. I can fix it and sell that thing. Right.
Good deal, man. Good deal.
I didn't say that out loud. I don't sell stuff. I hold it.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. networking, collaboration with, as a broker. Not everybody can do that. If you're just an investor, networking and just telling people that hey, I'm looking for this. If you know anybody, I'll buy you a cup of coffee, whatever.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. All right, man. So let's talk about, since you got back into this a few years ago, what was the biggest challenge you faced getting back into the game?
Well, having a bankruptcy on my record, that was a hard one. Not having any money.
Yeah.
Well, and then just finding the deals.
Yeah.
So, and then just the fear of failure, because, so for me, it was more, I had to,
well, let's talk about the mindset thing, because
right.
That's something that a lot of people, struggle with. A lot of people do. So how did you overcome, your limiting beliefs around, I don't think I could do this, or I don't know if this is going to work. Like, how did you overcome it?
Well, for me, I found myself back in the rat race, and so to survive as a real estate agent, I was doing, let's see, in 2007, that was my heyday.
Yeah.
I was involved in a $9 million development. I had put the deal together. We were going to sell off the 72 townhomes as we built them. I had a 29 unit development that we were in the middle of too. That was a 50-50 partner in.
Yeah.
And then most of my clients were builders and investors, fix and flips.
Yeah.
Well, when the market crashed, 80% of my business was gone.
Wow.
And then these things that were supposed to produce income now were costing me money and time.
Yeah.
So I literally had to get out of the business for a couple of years just to get away from things that, I just referred to other realtors that could take over and actually be a help.
Yeah.
I had to go make money. But I was in the midst of doing that, I was chasing foreclosures. I was trying to get the listings. I was a day late and $1 short.
Yeah.
But I ended up, I was talked to these asset managers, national property management companies that do these sorts of things.
Yeah.
What they really needed was contractors. So I actually got into contracting, basically from default to the time you hand it off to the agent.
Right.
I did all that and I got into that. So I did that for almost like 5.5, 6 years.
Yeah.
And when my son was 14, I actually took some time to talk to him, because I was working 15, 16 hours a day.
Wow.
And then invoicing till midnight, 1 o'clock, sometimes in the morning, and then get up, in 6-7 days a week.
Wow.
But I was, before that, I was, I wasn't making any money, commission based,
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I was making 6 figures again, doing what I was doing, at least I could pay my bills and stuff. And you think, well, I'll do this for a couple of years. Well, a couple of years turns into 5 or 6 years. And then my son, like I said, he actually happened to say something to me, and I thank him for it. He said, "Dad, you're never home. And when you are home," I won't say what he said, but he said, "You're not very nice."
Right. Right.
True, man. I was grumpy. I was one grumpy dude. Yeah. And I realized, wow, man, I mean, I've lived a better life than this. And I felt sad for him at 14 that he didn't remember from the time he was 7 and 8 year old, how good a life we had and stuff like that. But, he's 14. Last 5 years is his whole life.
Right.
That, it's majority of his life that he remembers. And I'm like, I got to make a change. I got to make a change quick. So I'm like, I actually know what I'm doing. I know how to invest. I know how to do this. So I needed to create a space where I could think again and be creative and think about investments. And so I reactivated my license, I had it on ice. Mm-hmm. And then I just started perusing the MLS. I found a 16-unit place. And I thought, well, I'll get this place and it'll make me $30,000 a year. And that's not enough to make a living, but it pays my basic bills.
Yeah.
And it'll free me up to be able to think a little bit. then the major thing I did in my business was the foreclosure business. It was really hard for me to do because I had to like working with my hands and doing all that and being in the field. And I made more money when I was in the field because I could watch my guys, but I forced myself to manage my business and not work my business. So I let the guys who, you know, if they ever hear this, they were great guys and they did work, but you know how it is. Employees are employees.
Yeah.
The owner is always going to do a better job.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's not where I needed to manage that business. And I knew it's not going to last forever, you know, the foreclosure business. So I just started to make adjustments and reinvest so that I could have free time to think about it. Because if any of us, if we have, you know, if I have time to read a book about investing, what value is that going to add to my life a year from now?
Yeah.
And so I just started really focusing on those things.
Right.
Taking the time, you know, one of those things for me, you know, it's kind of like having a balanced life. You think, you know, like working out and spending time with the family and stuff like that, that doesn't help you with investing, but it does actually, because if you're in a good place mentally, and you can, it's the craziest thing. Exercise helps me the most spiritually and in business.
Wow.
Because, you know, sounds crazy to some, but that's the time I actually hear from God the most, if you will.
Yeah.
It's my time. And then I don't know what it is. It's like meditation, you know, because if you're running or you're doing something, even when I'm lifting weights, man, and I'm listening to something, I have creative ideas. I'll go, oh, I should try this, or I should try that. And I try to write them down. So.
Yeah. Man, that's good, man, that you got something going like that for sure. And you overcame your mindset by really the big mindset shift was you was making money, but you was losing out on the family. So you was like, I got to do something different. And, you know, that why was strong enough for you to transition.
Well, yeah. And it was, and so I realized, you know, it's more like managing my business rather than working my business. And then that was one of the things too, is I think Robert Kiyosaki, I've read most of his books, and he says in one of those books, he said, you know, you're not being, you know, the definition of being wealthy is not how much money you have in the bank or how much money you make. It's how long can you go without working? And I thought, whoa, like an hour. So I thought, man, that sounds smart, you know, and, you know, put your dollars to work for you. And like I said, I had this in my past. I knew about this, and I had done it, and I always wanted to get back into it. And actually, I got sucked into fix and flips and all that stuff, which I'm not against, but it's kind of like musical chairs. If the music stops, you better have a chair. Because if the market turns on you, which it did for me, and I was left holding the bag with a couple of houses and then some development. And the developments, because I knew things were changing, right? But I didn't ever think that the bank would fail.
Right.
So when the bank failed, FDIC stepped in, the bank regulators, and we're like, hey, man, you need to keep sending us construction money so that we can continue to build and pay you. And they're like, yeah, that's not going to happen. And by the way, you still owe us $35,000 a month.
Wow.
And then the Deep Pockets guy, who I figured was he would save the project, and he could have. I learned this too the hard way. He was from a wealthy family, smart guy. Actually, they're very smart, and smart enough to know to put all their assets in a living trust. And so when this all hit the fan, and you know, I was only a 10% owner at the time, you know, and the real estate agent, and the builder and him were, you know, whatever, 45 and 45. And so he claimed bankruptcy the first, which shocked me. His family could have come in and bought the whole thing. But they didn't. He claimed bankruptcy, but you know, what he owned personally was his house, which had no equity in it at that point. He had a leased car, and then he had a brand new car, which had no equity. So he had no equity. He claimed bankruptcy, didn't cost him a dime, got rid of the $9 million in debt. and had a bad credit for 7 years.
Yeah.
Anyways, so it left me with that.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
it forced my hand too to do that a few years later.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see, man. That's definitely unfortunate, but it was a great learning experience though. You learned a lot from it. So great seminar for you.
Yeah.
Absolutely, man. So what markets are you focused on right now? Because there's a lot of markets that's good out there. Which ones are you focusing on?
Well, my local market for sure here in Durango. But what's funny is how these markets go.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in the town that's 24 miles to the east, and I'm not interested into the 130 miles to the south.
Yeah.
It's just Durango because I know it. But I am interested in what I'm looking for and trying to kick up deals for is, I would say, submarkets within an hour of metropolitan areas.
Yeah.
And 75 units or more.
Mm-hmm.
You could go less than that depending on where you're buying,
right,
and how much you're paying per unit, and what the cash flow is, right? But
yeah.
I say 75 units just because I think that's a good number to where you could have the structure in place on the ground, because you need on the ground, and be able to. So in those submarkets.
Right.
But the criteria, just like everybody else, people laugh at me, but then I get a lot of interest too, believe it or not. But, I say 75 plus units. I'm looking for, like a C property in an A or B location.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's simple enough.
Yeah. And then I add value. That's what I want to be able to do. And that could be in a remodeling them, or just there was a particular deal that I bought, the one I got a couple of years ago. It had been a tax credit property.
Yeah.
Where the developer gets the tax credits when he built it 20 years ago, but then those things were expiring.
Right.
And so we bought the place based on the old rents, but then we were able to raise the rents $200, $300 in some instances across the board.
Wow.
That adds value without even putting one new floor down.
Right.
So, like I said, that was a deal you see in a career come around, at least as an agent.
Absolutely, man. Oh, that's cool, man. Very, very easy to understand what you're looking for. 75 plus units and within an hour drive of any major city. That's simple.
Yeah.
All right, good deal, man. So when you're looking at your opportunities and you're trying to decide which ones you want to buy, as far as your underwriting goes, what are some of the red flags you look for?
I like to be able to, if I can drive by and take a look at it, if we're getting that deep into it, there's a lot of red flags, and it scares me when I start thinking about it. So I think you should be scared getting into it,
Absolutely.
But is it in an area? Because when you talk about like C-class area, I would say it like this, like F-class, D and F would be like you and I would be scared for our lives to go visit there.
Yeah.
Like, and then C would be more like I wouldn't want to live there, but I feel safe there, and then B would be like, I would live there, and A would be, of course I would live there.
Right.
So if you're looking at some place and it's like, it's scary, you're like, this is sketchy.
Yeah.
For whatever vibe you want to say that's from, that would be a red flag. And then a lot of times you'll see these places, when you look on LoopNet, because you start looking at cap rates and stuff like that, if something's a 10% cap rate or more, that, to me, that's a red flag. Especially if it's on, and it's just sitting there on LoopNet. It's like, what's going wrong? I've kind of for an education, just look at it and see. A lot of times it'll be in a place where the population is decreasing every year.
Yeah.
And there's, because maybe a military base left or something like that.
Yeah.
So, you can't just look on it based on income. I'd actually prefer to buy in a place like Durango, where, you know, the average cap rate is 5 to 7%, and on a good deal, and then try to find a good deal or a creative way to create more income, or put in storage units, or, you know, think outside the box of the guy or the gal that you're buying it from that's maybe burned out. So,
right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Those are some good points, really good points. And you know, there's a lot of investors just getting into the syndication space, or starting to try to buy, you know, apartment complexes. You know, what are some of the biggest rookie mistakes you're seeing people make right now?
Mistakes?
Yeah. What are the mistakes you're seeing these new investors making that you know, that they just shouldn't be doing?
Well, in just investing in general, thinking that you can just jump in and make money by just buying real estate. Like, you know, in general, they say, well, just get into real estate. Well, that can take you down. I mean, if I could go, if we had $10 million in cash, I could go buy up a bunch of stuff and we'd lose our butts.
Yeah.
So just buying real estate doesn't make it a good value or a good investment. And then just doing like what I did, you know, not doing their due diligence.
Yeah.
Or thinking, well, we'll just get into this. And the biggest thing that I would warn new investors is the fix and flips and development, like building. That is a whole different ball game, and you can get pinched pretty quickly. And with new investors, you know, if they get lucky on the first little deal or a couple deals, that they get addicted to doing deals.
Right.
And then it's more like a pride or ego issue. Like, well, I did 20 deals this year.
Yeah.
Because the way I look at it, it's like the more deals you're doing, the more chance you're giving yourself to make a mistake.
Yeah.
And I know I have flaws and I can't see everything.
Right.
So.
Yeah. That's some very good points there, man. So let's go ahead and segue into the next segment of the show. We're going to do a deal deep dive. So I guess the deal that you most recently done was the one that was 2014-15.
Oh, what's that? 2014?
Yeah. Is that the most recent deal you've done?
Oh no, the last deal I did was May 2018.
Oh, okay. Well, let's talk about that deal, man. If you like, you know, how many units was it?
145.
145.
Yeah.
Okay, and what was the value add that you seen on it?
Well, this particular one was an interesting one, and it's kind of I think it's a good thing to look at for people that are getting into it, because one of the hardest things to do to get into the marketplace is, you know, we were talking about mistakes you can make. Don't buy retail, you know, and don't buy retail and don't speculate.
Yeah,
that would be, you know, you see people doing like, oh, buy this now, it's going to be a break even, or it just will cost you a few bucks a month or whatever. Yeah. But, you know, in 2 years, it's going to be worth XYZ. You don't know that. And that's speculation. I used to do it. I'd never want to do it. You know, that's just gravy if you get, if it's worth more money.
Yeah.
But the cash flow is what we're looking at. So this particular one, it was a hotel.
Okay.
And what I see what I've seen across the nation, I think this is an interesting play for people like us, is you have the life use of a hotel goes from being a hotel, and as it gets older, it kind of naturally goes to more weeklies and kind of like low income workforce people. Especially in places where rent's expensive, they'll start, and then so the hotel goes from being a nightly to a weekly to a monthly. Yeah. And so the play that I liked with this one, so here in Durango, and this is a problem throughout the nation in some areas, is lack of housing. Yeah. And so with our particular deal, they were suites. All of them were suites, which mean, because typically if you look at a hotel to turn them into apartments, you're going to need, you typically will say, well, you need for every 2 rooms, you can make 1 apartment. Well, this one had already, because it was an older hotel built in the 60s, and for years they had taken at least half of it and had kind of funky long-term tenants all the time, which the short-term tenants were like, well, who are these people?
Right.
Anyway, so we just bought it, and we're turning it. That's the add value, is we're turning it into apartments.
Yeah.
And so far the city's been working with us, and we did our due diligence. There was a risk there that the city could come in and shut you down, potentially, if you're not doing it correctly.
Wow.
But I sat down with the city, and we have 145 units, which you could say there's 300 people that live there.
Yeah.
There's 300 people in our little town that if the city came in, and they told me, this is their words, if we came in and shut the place down, we have 300 people on the streets, and we already have a housing issue. So we're not going to, they said, we're not going to do that. You couldn't get them to put that in writing. So that could be an issue for some people.
Right.
But I've been here for 25 years. I've seen it for 25 years.
Yeah.
They hadn't shut them down in the last 15 years.
Yeah.
And then we talked to them, and then we also told them, hey, our plan is to turn them into these. And so they're willing to work with us on that, meaning to give us variances on some of the code issues.
Right.
That aren't, because there's in our area, there's a few things that could be very costly.
Yeah.
But it boiled down to the most important thing they're worried about is safety, which is fire, so like sprinkler systems and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So this particular one, that's on, we're planning on putting the sprinklers in. We haven't done that yet, but there's another building in town that I would like to turn into apartments. It's not on the market or anything like that. I just have my eye on it, but I know it has sprinklers already in it. So that's kind of a play that could think about that. If you ever see suites that's already sprinkled, in a place that already needs, that's, low income housing or affordable housing, let's say that, is in demand, that might be something to look at. So that's so we have, and to get to, so in order to get the non-recourse financing that we want to get, right? Have to have kitchens and all of it. So that's what we're also doing, is adding kitchens to all these. And we already had, out of 145 units, about 90 already had those. And so had kitchens that the previous owners had put in, over time. So that was one of the main things we're doing, is putting in kitchens, because we can turn around and go get financing. It'll be May or June of this year that we'll have that done, and the intention is to go in and do that. And so we bought them for $44,000 a unit. I estimate they'll be worth $90,000 to $125,000 a unit once we're done.
Wow, and that's amazing.
Yeah, and our add value cost, if you include the sprinkler systems, is about $600,000.
Yeah.
So, but we're talking millions, the difference. We bought it for $6 million. It'll be worth, you can check my math later, but maybe as much as $13 million.
Yeah, man, that'll be a huge win. Now let me ask you real quick before I forget. When you was looking at this opportunity and you seen it and you said, man, this would be good if we can, convert this. At that thought, did you go to the city and say, hey, this is what we're looking to do, or did you put it under contract and then go to the city and say, hey, this is what we're trying to do here on this property. Will you allow us to do it?
You always put it under contract first.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Tie that sucker up. The good part on this one, though, it was off-market deal, and the owner, I actually knew him from another insurance guy. He said, you guys should meet. You kind of do the same thing.
Yeah.
And so, I just told him, hey, if you ever want to sell any of your properties, because he's got a lot of properties, call me first. Well, he did. And as interesting as his first number was 10 million. And whatever they say at first, I go, I don't care if it's 100 million. If it's worth 100 million, I'll pay you for it, right?
Yeah.
But I don't know that till I look at the numbers. So I was like, sure, man, if it's worth it, I'll give you 10 million.
Yeah.
Well, we ended up buying it for 6.4 million.
Wow. That's
but
a
I
big
didn't say
difference.
screw you, you know. Yeah, I was thinking that seems like a lot, but maybe
Right.
maybe I'm not seeing something. Anyways, but yeah, so as fast as I could, I put it under contract.
Yeah.
One of the things I've done as an agent too, and this is how, when you said one of the challenges with getting back into it, you know, I kind of reverted back to how do you buy real estate with no money down?
Yeah.
I'm doing mine with no money down. I mean, everybody laughs at me. Like, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
Like, that's all I've done.
Wow.
But I can only do that because I'm a broker.
Yeah. So, I mean, essentially what you're doing, if I'm understanding you, is you're allocating, part of the purchase price as your commission. You're writing it up as a commission.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I had the same thought, man. That's very smart. That's very smart.
Yeah. And so, and you have to be careful, we're real, I'm a realtor. You don't have to be a realtor, but as agents,
yeah,
I'm sure you're a realtor. That's, yeah. I mean, everything, here's an easy thing to remember: keep everything transparent, and you don't have anything to worry about, right?
That's right.
So, when I made an offer when we started talking, and what it ended up happening is I had a 10% commission.
Yeah.
So most bankers and appraisers, they go, what? And
right.
I mean, we know as an agent, you're never supposed to say there's a standard commission.
Yeah, that's right.
I would always correct them when the banker or the appraiser, I said, well, there is no standard commission.
Yeah.
I've seen commercial commissions as high as 10%. I've seen them higher.
Wow.
But usually that's on smaller deals, right?
Yeah.
So, but I just sold them on the deal, and it made sense. And of course, there was challenges with that because, hey, man, I still got a bankruptcy.
Yeah.
I'm trying to do a 10% deal. Of course, I would love to do it with a 10% commission, and then have the seller carry back 10%, and then go to the bank, have them do it.
Yeah.
That really doesn't happen.
Yeah.
But if you bring in a strong partner, that's what I've been able to do, is bring in a strong partner.
Yeah.
And then of course they never really liked the commission either, but I'm adding value, and it's an off-market deal.
Yeah.
And I'm the expert. I mean, that's, I'm bringing them into the deal. I never had to do that. So
right.
You have those conversations, and some of the, my partner, he's a young kid, he's in his 30s.
Yeah.
And he's a lot smarter than me. And he is a really good negotiator. That was some of the toughest negotiations I've done.
Wow.
Going into that's, as a broker, and having it be an off-market deal, I went and negotiated the deal with a 10% commission on the front end. And then when you bring it to investors, I'm in a place to negotiate from.
Yeah.
And, it didn't turn out to where I got 10% at closing.
Yeah.
We ended up adjusting the price and different things like that in exchange for me having ownership.
Yeah.
So, which is actually, it's even better because then I don't have a taxable event.
That's right.
Anyways, but it puts you in a position where you can negotiate. If you're finding the deals, you have the deal flow. And so I'm trying to remember exactly what you asked.
No. That was good that you went off on a tangent there, man.
Yeah. Shoot that rabbit.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, but okay, so you mentioned one thing about financing for the actual rehab on it. Are you guys using like a bridge loan or something like that?
No, actually, I was trying to put these 140. It was actually 144. We added a unit. That's why I say 145 now. But that's a rabbit trail. So there's 145 units. Originally I was trying to put this. I had 5 different investors that we were trying to put this deal together. We weren't quite strong enough. Long story short, found this other guy who came in, and this is what he does. He has a whole company where he owns real estate all over the place. He's a bigger player, a lot bigger player than I am.
Yeah.
But he was willing to come in. I'm the boots on the ground operator.
Yeah.
But I ended up not having to put any money into the deal. He put all the money into the deal.
Wow.
So I was going to use my commission plus some other money I was scrounging together and blah, blah, blah. So saying that any CapEx, he's just coming out of pocket. However, what I told him and what I've been able to do is this thing cash flows so well, we've just been doing it out of cash flow. So, I mean, it grosses. I've already got, within 2 months, I had the rents up to where I wanted them to be and had them as full as we could, where we were remodeling about 5 units a month. Yeah. But it brings in 130,000 a month. So we have quite a bit of cash flow to use. If I use, 20, 30,000 a month, and we're not taking any profit. We haven't taken any profits out. We're just using the profits of the property. So we don't have a bridge loan or anything like that. We did look into that. And we were trying to do non-recourse from the get-go, but because of it's a hotel, we couldn't do that. So we got local financing at a pretty good rate. But our intention is to refinance that and get non-recourse money, pull all our money out and then some, if possible. Technical should be able to do 75% of 13 million or 80% of 13 million. However, it just depends on, not every bank is going to do that, but it's still not going to be, it's better than a sharp stick in the eye. So
yeah, for sure. Now, are you guys planning to hold long term, or are you going to sell that at some point?
We're going to hold long term. So it's more like we go in there, we do the value add, we refinance with non-recourse money. Yeah. And then it's still going to cash flow real nice. And you basically have your money and maybe more money that's tax free. Yeah. It wasn't a taxable event because we're just borrowing money, technically, but the tenants just get to pay that for us. Yeah. I should say the property. That's nicer to say it that way. Yeah. And then you can take that money and go reinvest it. Yeah.
Man, that's a good strategy, man. And it sounds like you guys got a home run on that deal there. So congrats on that for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, man. So let's segue to the last segment of the show. It's a lightning round. 5 questions for you.
Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
All right. What's the best advice you ever been given?
I would say, I'm cheating here. Sorry about that.
No, you're good, man.
The best advice, well, I could say it on just a few things. And I think I already mentioned it in the show that wealth is not measured by how much money you make, but by how long you can go without working.
Yeah. So, that's definitely one of my walls, man. That's a great quote, powerful quote.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. What's the best book you've read this year? Well, in the last 12 months.
Yeah, I was going to
say. You're just starting.
Sad to say I haven't finished a book in the last 6 days.
Yeah.
I should have. I am reading some books. I've read a couple books that are really good. The one I just read that it's called Family Wealth, Keeping It in the Family. And it's by this guy, James E. Hughes. Okay. How family members and their advisors preserve human, intellectual, and financial assets for generations. Wow. I think anybody of these listeners would enjoy that book because it makes you really think about it. Because he was pointing out that, if you set up a trust, which is, like in the Bible, it says it blesses the man who provides for his children's children. That's basically a dynasty. That's 3 generations.
Right.
You can set that up where there's a trust that's protected for three generations, but typically you'll have somebody that was an entrepreneur and they made all this money. Yeah. But by the 3rd generation, it's gone. And that's they call that the shirt sleeve proverb, or like, I think it's in China or Japan, or you hear this in Saudi Arabia, like my grandfather rode a camel and my grandson will ride a camel. We're driving Lamborghinis right now. But, so it's this, how do you preserve wealth? And so it was kind of like a challenge. So if you're going to preserve wealth, how do you preserve wealth to last more than 100 years? That's pretty cool to kind of think like that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's powerful. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, you mentioned some of these earlier, but what are some rituals you have created that's helping you as an investor right now?
you know, like a lot of people, well, I do the best working in the morning. I try to, you know, I just naturally get up early. You know, some people, I guess not so, but I've always kind of thought that's a benefit to get up early. That's when, you know, I spend my time. I read my Bible. I go to the gym.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I start my day. And then as I've gotten older, I realized about 2 or 3 o'clock, I'm kind of toast, and I'm not very effective. So it's like, let's just go home or be home and spend time with my wife or my kids, my grandson that's going to be on the way.
Yeah.
So I mean, I could give out different pointers, but I think basically the rituals to create a space where you can think and kind of evaluate, meditate, you know, that's simplistically that pays dividends for me.
Yeah, that's great. What is the one thing you're focusing on right now to help you improve your business or grow your business?
That would be just building a team, where in the past my attitude was more like, you know what, I don't want partners, because, you know, you can have, you know, I've had trouble with some of my partners, not referring to my brother, but you know, some other partners, and it just makes it harder, because you're like, well, shoot, this is bringing in $100 grand, could have a thing, you know, it's selfish. But then, you know, when things hit the fan, it's really nice to have good partners, and it's nice to have a team, and nice to have a plan. And so I'm just what I'm doing to change that and to grow my business is to connect with people like you, other people around the nation, masterminding and stuff like that. And just, I've spent over 10 grand in education just this last year to go hear from some guys that are a lot smarter than me, to learn about their infrastructure, their systems they have in place. And man, it's a beautiful time to be alive, because you know, in any industry that I've been in, you can always go to some conference. Yeah. And then there's always a booth there, and they're going to show you some program, software. There's so much software out there, so amazing. That will help you do everything we just mentioned, you know, help you with deal flow. And so I'm putting those things in place. And one of the things I'm with, you know, the team in place I want to do is build a team here locally for, which I already have, but just, you know, tighten that up as far as operations, and give people, you know, KPIs, you know, and then have the acquisition side, which has mainly just been me, but I'm developing that side with more strategy. So rather than just waiting for another 20 years for a sweet deal to come my way, you know, because I'm 50, I don't want to wait 20 years. You know, and I'm excited about doing stuff with my kids. Which they want to do it with me. So it's like, well, because I probably would just quit. Go skiing all the time. But it got my juices flowing to kind of build something that's going to last 100 years. How about that?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
So build a team.
Absolutely. All right. So, man, what is the one thing that you would tell your younger self in regards to investing that will help them just, you know, catapult to where you're at now?
Don't sell.
Yeah.
Don't sell.
Don't sell anything. Hold.
Yeah. I mean, and I would, you know, there's, you know, the bad deals sell. Yeah. But the mistake as a young man thinking, well, we can sell this because, you know, when the market gets hot, see that 1 or 2 deals or whatever deals you get into, that's a sweet deal. I tell my wife this, and because I always talk about selling, and she's like, "You told me to tell you never to sell." I'm like, okay, hold on a second, let me think about it. But it's not bad to sell, but you better have a plan, and it better have a property in place, because that sweet deal that you got, it may take you 20 years. So in 1997, when we sold the 98 units here in town, that was, you know, my brother and I sold it, and you know, for $1 million more than we paid for it. But you know, I got 500,000, and then I paid taxes on that. It's not as much. You probably know this, you know, in your past careers. It ain't that much money.
It's not, man. And not when Uncle Sam get his, man.
And if you don't have another income, you know, supporting you, and you live on that for a while, which I did, to build my real estate business. It goes pretty fast. If you don't have any mentors in your life, which I didn't, telling you what to do and not to do, then fool and his money soon shall part.
Right.
That's a proverb for you.
Absolutely.
I've been foolish that way. So yeah, because I think my brother and I we talk about those. There's two deals: the one that we had in Fort Collins and the one here.
Yeah.
If the 98 units that we sold in '97 for $1 million more, I think we sold it for $59,000 a unit. They're worth $130,000 a unit now.
Wow.
If I would have just sat on the couch and smoked weed, which I don't, but
yeah.
How much, I'd be worth $10 million right now.
Right. Yeah.
But what happens is I just wasn't smart about it.
Yeah.
And I was burned out with the management, and I was just like, I want to get out of this.
Yeah.
But when you're in that situation, you can pull away from the management. You can hire a manager. I didn't know how to hire managers. I didn't know a whole lot. I learned a lot in real estate sales, which I would have known as a young man, but I didn't have to learn those things as you get older.
Absolutely, man. Well, hey, Garth, man, I really appreciate you coming on the show today. You've added tremendous value to the listeners. Tell my listeners, how can they get in touch with you?
I was going to do this, but then I realized it's probably backwards.
No, yeah, we can see it. We can see it. There you go. There we have it,
you can
man.
pause and figure it out. But that shows my email. It's garth.schulteis@exprealty.com. You could also call me on my cell phone. I don't really have I have a web page, but all you can do is put an application in for a rental.
Yeah. And give your cell out to those that's listening on iTunes, because they're not going to see the video version.
Okay. It's 970-759-4930. And I would recommend you text me. You feel free to try to call me, but I typically don't pick up. I get a lot of solicitors.
Yeah.
So text me, for sure. You can leave me a message and I'll get to you also. But yeah, 970-759-4930.
Man, your phone's about to blow up.
Really? Let it blow up.
Yeah. Really good deal, man.
I'll help you out as best I can. That's one of the best things I can do for you and myself. And what people have done for me is just we help each other out, and it always comes back around.
Absolutely. Well, hey, man, I appreciate you coming on the show today, and let's stay in touch.
All right. Thanks, Will.
All right. Later.
Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to the Generational Wealth Through Commercial Real Estate podcast, brought to you by Onyx Capital Investments. Onyx Capital Investments works with investors nationwide to invest in income-producing real estate in emerging markets. Connect online at www.onyxcapitalinvestments.com to learn more about what we're doing. If we have added value to your life, please leave us a review.